So blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us, and big props to our friend Greg Pruitt of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. It's great that he is making a difference along with those folks. And really, if you're new to the area, the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance started with Greg and his buddy Seth and a few others outside the old Boise Gun Company. That's right, outside the old Boise Gun Company. And urging people to sign a petition to allow people to conceal and carry without a permit in the state of Idaho. Greg's been at it for many, many years. He's a veteran, a family man, really good guy, and it's wonderful to see what's going on. By the way, don't forget you can get all the news that you need on our website and our app, KIDO Talk Radio. You just go to the App Store. No third parties, no this, that, and the other. It's just type it in or Google Play, and you can take us anywhere, and hopefully we can earn some real estate on your phone. Joining us now to talk a little bit about the economy and just how competitive we are, Kent Lastman from the Competitive Enterprise Institute, the CEI. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, we take a look, before we get to talking about the new Green Deal and others, we take a look at the economy and where we are and the budget and everything else. Congress, home on recess. How competitive are we when we're looking at the debt and the deficit these days?
Well, the economy is always a quagmire for predictions, but I can tell you where we are and where we've been is we're doing very well. There's been steady and strong growth for a record number of months. This is the longest expansion we've ever had in America. We're seeing the doomsayers come out about every 6 weeks or so with new government reports, and they say, oh, no, this can't last. And sure enough, the innovation and strength of the American manufacturers and farmers, the business community, they keep producing, and they keep turning growth. And that's something that we should be very happy with. There are warning signs. There are storm clouds on the horizon, and it has largely to do with two drivers. And one of them you mentioned there, and that is the way our federal government operates with deficits is not sustainable. It's not that we can't have deficits, it's that we can't have deficits that outpace economic growth. And that's the penchant for Congress members to spend money is not a problem. The second warning cloud out there really is it's a divisive issue right now, but the economics of it are pretty straightforward, and it's trade. And the economies of the world are linked greater than they've ever been in the past. And the gamesmanship and brinksmanship that the president and his team have been playing with some of the world's economies, and especially China, is that's a real threat to continued strength and continued economic growth here at home.
When we take a look at the first thing that you talked about, Kent, the growing deficit, the growing debt. Obviously, Congress pieced out. There'll be will be funded till after the first of the year, I suppose, or maybe it's even after the election. You'll have to let me know on that one. But what are the consequences? Could we see something even bigger than what happened with Greece if all of a sudden we're spending more in debt service than we are on roads, bridges, and the military?
It's we're not quite at that point with debt service payments. More likely, what we'll see is a slowing of the economy. We'll sit on the precipice of recession, and then the question will be, do we pull back and even out and put in place some restraints on the growth of government, or do we go into a full-on real challenge, a real crisis with deficit spending? We're still probably a couple years away from that, but no longer can we talk about how this is a generation away, this is 20 years away, this is 10 years away. It is now something that current workers and current politicians making these decisions will have to deal with in our own careers, in our own lifetimes.
Kent Lastman joining us from the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Do you see any movement that way at all in Congress with the administration?
No. The Congress is, as your listeners know, they are tremendously divided on all manner of things. The one thing that they can agree on is to keep spending money. It's the one way they can get together and say, I'll meet you halfway. We'll spend money on the thing you care about, and you spend money on the thing I care about. So on one side of the table, you've got priorities like national defense, veterans, and on the other side of the table, you've got other social programs and expansion of tax subsidies. So it's just not a pretty picture when you look at the politics of it all. But I do think there's a reckoning coming, and it will come in the form of, those first signals in the canary in that coal mine are probably going to be bond and interest rates and bond rates, and then we'll slowly see confidence in the dollar wane overseas, and that's when the big decisions have to be made. There'll be a slow roll, and hopefully people will see the signal and make the hard decisions at that point.
And, of course, that would impact housing and cars and just about everything else, right?
Oh, absolutely. Consumer confidence and the ability to go out and purchase the things that improve our lives, whether it be appliances or new investments in intellectual capital, like financing and education. Consumer confidence is a very sensitive antenna. It's something that, people know if their own employer is having trouble or in a tight fix. And their own employer might be seeing a small slow, but a slow in orders. So when businesses are seeing that 6 months out they don't need to fulfill as much of an order, that trickles down. They spend more time on training and they spend less time on running the factory floor, that sort of thing. And people understand that, they internalize that. It affects their spending and saving habits at home, and it all ripples through the economy quite quickly.
Kent Lastman joining us, Competitive Enterprise Institute, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So let's get to the other factor that you said, China, this brinksmanship. Is it good policy? A lot of farmers in Idaho are very concerned. A lot of farmers are concerned across the country. And, of course, the Chinese devaluing its currency. Most of us will understand that, but not really get why the Chinese do that. The president calling them a currency manipulator. How does that impact our lives?
Well, I think we need to probably start with the first precept, which is trade wars. No one wins with them. No one wins in the short term, certainly, and in the long term, the player that comes out with a stronger hand is the player who is willing to endure more pain. Now, if you just look at the geopolitics of it, America does not start in a good place if you want to try to win a long-term trade war, because we're engaged with a totalitarian regime. So imposing costs on their society, the Chinese leaders, it's a much lower concern than anything you would find in the West. They're willing to punish people in China in a way that American leaders historically have not been willing to do. Tariffs are another form of taxation. And it is certainly the case that there is a wide array of illegal action taken by Chinese companies, that they steal intellectual property, that they manipulate the agreements that are made. There's a lot of coercion involved in how American company or other Western company wants to go into the Chinese market. However, the tactics that have been employed in the last 2 years through tariffs and most recently this week, the naming of China as a currency manipulator, these things are all, the direct effect is flowing straight back to the American consumer and the American manufacturer. As you said, the agriculture and heavy industrial manufacturers, those are the two sectors that are hurt and hit the hardest.
Kent, let's talk a little bit about some of the crazier proposals in Congress, the new Green Deal or the Green New Deal, whatever you want to call it, the new Green Deal, and what it would cost all of us here in Idaho.
Well, we did an analysis. The Green New Deal is something that have a lot of talk, a lot of attention, a lot of energy behind it at the beginning of the year. And so we thought we better take a look at this and understand what it would mean for people. And it didn't take long to realize that most of it was not serious. It simply is not a serious proposal. In fact, the resolution introduced in Congress, which was backed by 12 United States senators and backed by 9 of the Democrat presidential candidates, it received 0 votes from those 9 presidential candidates who had endorsed it. So that was one signal that it was not a serious proposal, but nonetheless, these ideas and these things have a way of hanging around, and they linger in the body politics. We wanted to have an analysis on hand. And we looked at the proposal, and there were several things in it that we just didn't think we could get our arms around. There's no way to do a reasonable analysis of things like providing adequate housing and fair wages for all. So we narrowed it down and looked at 4 elements. The logistics industry, which is shipping, moving the goods that we consume and produce, moving them around the country. Electric vehicles. The Green New Deal calls for a shift to an entire electric vehicle fleet. We looked at the electricity market, the way we heat and cool and run our households. And then finally, we also looked at building retrofits. You might remember hearing about the Green New Deal calls for every building, every structure in America to be upgraded to the highest levels of energy efficiency. Commercial building and every industrial building in the country being retrofitted. The net of all this was we analyzed 5 states and found that in the first year, in 4 of those states, the cost to a typical household would be in excess of $70,000. We're talking $71,000 to $73,000. The 5th state, which was Alaska, due to its remote location and the geographic features that lend to a colder and darker winter, the first year cost would be upward of $100,000 per household. The costs go down for the next few years, and then we see them continue from year 6 into perpetuity. Every single household would be paying more than $37,000 in these states to implement just these 4 provisions of the Green New Deal.
Incredible. Kent Lastman, we appreciate your work. If people want more information about the Competitive Enterprise Institute, what can they do, sir?
Well, I hope you'll visit us at www.cei.org. And certainly I want those listeners to stay tuned to you every day, because we'd love to have our policy analysts and experts back on the show.
We definitely will. We appreciate you, and we've covered your work for years and appreciate the good work of the CEI. Take care, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Kent Lastman. Coming up next, trouble in Middleton. We'll let you know next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller, in the morning. Before we get to the latest in Middleton, a wonderful community. It's funny, so many people are Boise-centric, and I suppose all of a sudden now becoming Meridian-centric or whatever-centric. But Middleton, a wonderful community. One of the hidden gems in the Treasure Valley, of course, homes there. You can still buy affordable homes, but new homes going for $300,000, $400,000. Still wondering what people do, and God bless you if you can afford a home like that. That means, like Kent said from the Competitive Enterprise Institute, we're doing well to afford those homes and those prices. Of course, we do worry about home inflation, but we will get to what's going on in Middleton. And it's crazy what they've lost a principal. They had the showdown at the school board. It's like a modern-day Dallas or Dynasty or Empire, call it what you will, in Middleton, Idaho. And now when you Google Middleton, Idaho, the image of the KKK and the Confederate flag step up. That's right. Image of the KKK members appears on Middleton School District's Google listing. Now, again, probably some liberal prankster, somebody mad at Middleton for whatever reason, but they're trying to get that down. And you're thinking, man, can't that community get a break? And for the people that live in Middleton or near Middleton, I'm not ripping on Middleton, just making an observation. I don't think that the real KKK or members of the Middleton School Board or the webmaster put that up there deliberately. It was somebody trying to make a dumb, ridiculous, unacceptable statement. But we do have the liberal pranksters, do we not? KIDO Talk Radio time is 6:25 with Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. I am so glad, Larry, that everything is calm. Couple things going on. Big ice raids, the third largest ever in the state of Mississippi. Will we ever have any in Idaho? Number one. Number two, the debate continues over red flag laws. I don't think that it's going anywhere. I think the president means well when he says it, but you heard his son on our program yesterday saying, well, what happens if the libs get in charge? And I don't believe that you're going to have anyone, whether it's Mitch McConnell running for re-election in Kentucky, Jim Risch, Russ Fulcher, Mike Crapo, Mike Simpson, really going to that level, right? I don't see that happens. So we'll take your calls on that. And unfortunately, there was another mass killing last night, this time in California. It involved a man with a knife, right? A man with a knife. And now all of a sudden, are we going to start banning people with knives, right? Robberies, stabbings, 4 people dead. We don't say this to make light of the situation. This is serious stuff. You know, the beauty of America, and this is what we have to consciously fight for and hope for and pray for, is that you could go to a movie theater, you could go to a supermarket, and you don't have to worry about somebody who's mentally deranged or crazy or has an agenda or is Al-Qaeda or ISIS wanting to get you. The beauty about America, and in Idaho, and thanks to our friends Greg Pruitt and the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance and others, and the conservative lawmakers that made this happen, having to push and pull the more moderate progressives into voting for these laws, is that you can protect yourself without the state coming down to get you, right? The state cannot deny you the ability to carry your weapon wherever you want. Now, in Idaho, whether people had permits or not, I would probably assume, and you know what happens when you assume, that, quite frankly, people carried regardless of whether or not they had a permit, right? So if you come across somebody trying to stab you, who's killed 4 people in California, 2 others wounded, in a Santa Ana, California neighborhood southeast of Los Angeles, then you have the great equalizer. But are we going to start taking people's knives? And again, I say that for the point of argument.
Santa Ana Police Department arrived quickly, and as they entered the parking lot, the suspect exited the 7-Eleven carrying a handgun and a large knife. The suspect was ordered to comply with the officers, at which time he dropped both weapons and complied and was taken into custody without further incident.
And once again, thank goodness for law enforcement. When's the last time you were in flight or fight syndrome? Law enforcement, they're professionally trained to deal with that all the time, to deal with the bad guys, right? And they do it. So God bless law enforcement. Please tell those folks thanks when you see them on the road or even when you get a ticket, right? Because they're protecting us. They're protecting and serving, and we need to acknowledge that now more than ever. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Coming up next, what happens when you take on the baker? Ooh, it doesn't look good for one major Treasure Valley grocery chain. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And coming up, Albertsons versus the bakery. It doesn't look like Albertsons is going to win this one over Granny C's. More details to come in about 4 minutes. Joining us now live from Dayton, Ohio, Fox News Radio's Jeff Manasso. Jeff, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How are you?
I'm okay. Your reaction being on the scene in Dayton, Ohio, sir. What's going on?
Well, the president met with first responders here yesterday and survivors at Miami Valley Hospital. I was actually on 5th Street, where the makeshift memorial continues to grow. 9 wooden crosses there this morning, pile of flowers and notes and candles still flickering and just a lot of sorrow and sadness. But it was all kind of overshadowed by politics, with protests not only there but outside the hospital. And the White House says, "Look, this was a beautiful moment where I was meeting, where the president was meeting with victims and first responders and their families, and it was a message of unity and hope and kind of it wasn't a photo op. Even though we have a couple pictures of it, but press was largely kept away. And hospital officials at Miami Valley say that the president's visit was legitimate and it was very heartfelt." And people appreciated it, from the hospital staff to the ER and trauma doctors and nurses. And but there were protests outside the hospital. A couple hundred people showing up. There were protests outside the bar, Ned Pepper's, where the shooting went down. And there were also Trump supporters. And I can tell you there were just as many Trump supporters as there were protesters holding Trump signs. 2020, a big RV came cruising down 5th Street with a big Trump 2020 banner and American flags, and people were wearing red hats. And there were shouting matches, but all in all, it was very peaceful. And, I think the one thing that unified, both sides is that something does need to be done, whether it's stronger gun control, whether it's, figuring out, what set this guy off and how to make sure, it doesn't happen again. Looking at mental health, nobody really seems to have a concrete answer. They never have, in my experience in covering these. The fallout just kind of disappears. And I think there's a fear that that's going to happen again. But yeah, so that's the latest. And I can tell you that one of the cool moments that I had, Kevin, was in talking to police officers. There were a lot of cops there yesterday and still will be today and in the coming days, as they always usually are there. Thank goodness they were there early Sunday. And one officer was telling me, look, cops get a bad rap lately. But we do this, we don't make a lot of money, and we do this because we love it. And I can tell you one of the great things for me, this is the officer saying this, is that I've never gotten more hugs in my life. I saw Trump protesters, Trump supporters, people jogging by on the way to work, just stopping down to go to get a coffee, hugging police officers, and that was kind of a beautiful sight.
Indeed. Jeff Manasso joining us, Fox News Radio, live from Dayton, Ohio here this morning. What's the area like? Just like a typical town, like in Idaho, the bar and such? I mean, just typical area? Anything?
Yeah,
distinctive?
I mean, it's got the area where the Oregon district, it's kind of an older area, and it's up and coming, and there are a lot of bars, and it's a college town, and so it's blue collar town, and a lot of businesses, a lot of bars, restaurants, coffee shops, and it's kind of, I guess the hipsters, hang out in this general area where this went down, and with cobbled streets and old historic buildings, and it's making a comeback, and the bar scene is one of the big revenue generators for this little particular strip, and always pretty busy. And that's why there's usually a good police presence down there. And thankfully, they were there right on scene when this gunman began opening fire. And the FBI says they're still trying to track his motive. We've all heard aspects of this shooter's life. The FBI describes violent ideology, and we've seen Twitter retweets and part of his social media footprint already that indicates he was kind of a sick individual, Antifa type. And but they're not giving us a motive at this point. They're just saying that we just don't know, that they don't have the facts as well buttoned down on this guy in El Paso who left a manifesto. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see if anything is done to try and make sure this doesn't happen again, whether it's from City Hall to the State House to Capitol Hill or the White House. But there's a lot of sadness and a lot of sorrow, and a lot of people with the 10,000-mile stare and shock. And but at the same time, there's a lot of people going out and living their lives. And we were out to dinner last night, and people were smiling and laughing and trying to move on the best they can in what I guess is the new normal here.
Of course, Dayton, Ohio, very big military town, very big college town. So you've got a healthy mix there, and of course, typical Midwest folks. Stoicism and continuing on. Jeff Monosso, anything else I might have left out and asking you any questions this morning?
No, that's it.
God bless you, Jeff. You take care, sir. Thank you.
You too, my friend.
Our great friend Jeff Monosso joining us. There you have it. And that's what's lost on a lot of things, folks. You know what I'm saying. We can talk about the politicians and hear from the politicians, and they mean well. They're good people. But on the other hand, it's sad that Dayton, Ohio, El Paso, Texas, it has to be turned into a political, counter-political rally where people are protesting the president. The president didn't go in and shoot these people. The president didn't go in and do these things. If we want to start blaming people, we could blame the rappers. We could blame the violent video games. And maybe it's an evolution, and this is why I love parents and grandparents and people that every day go out and work in this heat and every day understand that it ain't about them, that every day make a difference. We could, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your kids, whether it's your parents, we've all become great at making excuses. Well, I'm late because of traffic. I'm late because I thought it was a half an hour later. I'm late because I made a bad call at the line of scrimmage. And whether you're the boss or you're the employee or what have you, sometimes it's best just to own up. These guys had issues. And they had screw looses. It's like a relationship, or when a relationship at work goes bad. And maybe you used to do this. You overanalyze everything. And there's a scene in one of the Batman movies when Batman's facing Heath Ledger's Joker, and Bruce Wayne is talking to Alfred, and he says, well, what makes this guy do it? Sometimes people just want to harm others. And that's why law enforcement is so important. That's why it's so important to have the ability to protect yourself, right? And we're going to punish people that actually shoot weapons responsibly. I think that is the wrong way to go. So we'll see how that happens. We have over 200 mayors now pushing Senate leaders to return to Washington to act on gun reform. That's not going to solve the crazy people. They got their guns legally. What are we going to do? If somebody has an issue with you, they're going to make something up to harm you, to take away your ability to defend yourself. That is just wrong. We'll get to that coming up. But let me tell you this story that is fascinating. And again, sometimes you're better off just not taking the bait. And it involves this local bakery that we first brought you to this attention yesterday. Granny C's is being sued by locally owned and operated Albertsons Corporation, which cited illegal competition by a family-owned bakery in a lawsuit. This hit the airwaves, and this is just not a good look for a local company that people want to support and that does a tremendous amount of work for the community. Let's take a listen to the news report right here on KIDO Talk Radio.
Granny C's Bakery had to close up early on Wednesday after selling out of nearly everything due to overwhelming support.
It made me happy, actually. I'm glad that we're not the only people that want to come out and give them support and make sure that we can do everything we can to make sure they don't get shut down and show them love.
People coming to support the bakery were surprised by the lawsuit from Albertsons, citing illegal competition.
They don't have anything that can compare to these guys to be losing business.
The owner, Brad DeBoer, emotional.
There's no way that I could not say thank you.
After seeing the support from the community.
Boise is one heck of a town, so I don't believe that's not, that's not something that I'm surprised by.
But DeBoer says he's not violating anything.
So this is our letter of intent?
This document told the landlord exactly what he'd be doing, running a bakery. And the lawsuit from Albertson states no other supermarket, bakery, or deli, or a store that sells alcohol for you to take home can open up. This is from the Covenant Code and Restrictions. But DeBoer's lease doesn't say that. It instead states no supermarket over 5,000 square feet that includes a bakery can open, not a separate bakery on its own. The difference comes down to a semicolon, leaving DeBoer in a frustrating position.
Then the property managers, how they can tell me and send out a lease that they say isn't in violation of the CC&Rs.
And because of this lawsuit, the future is up in the air right now for Granny C's.
I'm still at the same place I was yesterday. I don't see a way out for us. It's here or bust.
And here's the skinny on this. And we can say what you want, but the Albertsons Corporation, founded by Joe Albertson many years ago, now it's owned by a major corporation. They do a lot of great charitable work, right? Now they've issued a statement that they seek to address the landlord's failure to follow upon the agreed-upon restrictions. They say, filing the lawsuit, we notified the landlord on our concerns. The landlord failed to adequately respond, so they decided to sue the baker. This is David and Goliath is going to lose this one, man. Like I said, it's crazy. Dave Ramsey talks about this all the time, making a man's stake. And years and years and years of good work supporting charities can just be washed away by a dumb move. Albertsons should withdraw this lawsuit, let Granny C's Bakery, that I'm sure they bake a lot of good stuff, but most of us never heard of until we started covering the story here on KIDO Talk Radio. Really, they need to just let this go. I mean, they sold out of things. Here you have this poor business owner who, just wants to bake bread and sell it. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with letting this guy do it? Again, the public support. Look, Albertsons, like all of us, they're engaged in a competitive market. You've got Walmart, Winco, Fred Meyer, Billy, Timmy, local grocery stores. The last thing they need is to be associated with this. Let the guy bake his bread, sue the landlord, what have you. But as you can hear in this story on KIDO Talk Radio, everybody came in to support the guy. This is not a good look. And someone at Albertsons, I'm sure they will, should withdraw this thing quietly. The amount of public support they would get would be immeasurable. And again, not to bash them, I make mistakes all the time. You hear how I flub the words and such. It's just how it is. Let this one go, and we'll all benefit.
Now, at this time, DeBoer says he hasn't talked to his landlord about this issue. Now, Albertsons did release a statement to us today regarding this lawsuit, saying in part, in this instance, Albertsons seeks to address its landlord's failure to follow the agreed-upon restrictions. Prior to filing suit, we notified the landlord of our concerns, and the landlord failed to adequately respond.
Right. So sue the baker. And again, we could go crazy on Albertsons. No, they are a wonderful member of the community. Let's hope that this gets settled and Granny C's can continue on and Albertsons can continue on, right? We'll save the roller coaster for the markets. Joining us now, the original Safer Money specialist, our friend, Ron Grant, joining us. Catch him Saturdays 2 to 3 on KIDO Talk Radio. Ron, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are we doing today?
Good to have you with us, brother. Boy, it's a turbulent world in the markets these days, huh?
Yeah, up and down. That's why they call it the Wall Street, a roller coaster of Wall Street. Back in 08 and 09 when the market tanked almost 50%, my clients and I, we got a zero. Of course, a zero is always better than a loss. We want to make sure you sleep at night, make sure that money is protected and guaranteed for a lifetime income, and I can help you with that.
Boy,
make sure you tune in. Huh?
I'm sorry, that's reassuring these days, right?
It is because, it's a volatile thing happening right now, especially with China. We don't know what's going to happen on there. And, the bond market's really bad right now. So it's, if you're over 50, in my opinion, you shouldn't be in Wall Street. It should be in something safe with your money because you work just too darn hard to lose it. So.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some information, some free information people can get Saturdays 2 to 3 on KIDO Talk Radio or anytime on your website, right?
Yep. Saturday, we're going to talk about the biggest risk to your retirement. So make sure you tune in, you get a pencil and a piece of paper. But if you go to my website, I have some great third-party educational information that you can take a look at. It's safermoneyspecialist.com. And I can show you how to have a reasonable range of return. I can show you how to have a guaranteed lifetime income that you can't outlive. And then when you've passed away, your beneficiaries will get the balance. I can show you how to stop paying those pesky fees you're paying to your financial planner, your stockbroker, your 401k company. Remember, when you pay those fees, it eats up your returns. So we don't want to do that.
No, we don't. And, of course, we want to make sure we know what's going on in the community, some great car shows, some great fun, and to have the ability that mailbox money to do it.
Yep, we do. And tune in Saturday. We're live. We're going to take some calls. We're going to have some fun. As always, Kevin, you're great. And you help us get that message out to people to keep that money safer and sleep at night, knowing that you can't lose the principal or the gains.
That's right. You'll like it better than any time on Eagle Road, right?
Yes, Eagle Road. I was on it the other day. I had to go up it, and it wasn't bad. I guess you just have to catch it right, but I try to stay off of it if I can. So
yes,
funny.
Sir. Ron, one more time, your number?
Sure, it's 208-660-1372.
Ron Grant, the original Safer Money Specialist. We appreciate you, brother.
All right, brother. Have a good day.
Thank you. Our great friend Ron Grant. Check him out Saturdays 2 to 3. Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up next, Mark Meckler, the Convention of States, and Liberal Steve. Talking more about local business, the Albertson situation, Granny C's. What is the solution? We'd love to hear from you next. Good morning.